Hey guys, so you should have already watched my PowerPoint video on the difference between a secondary and a primary source. And if you watched it, you should know why we're going to be looking at secondary sources today and what makes them secondary sources. Now, I want to show you what you're going to be doing, and then I'm also going to model for you guys how to answer these questions and maybe do a think aloud to help describe to you what you should be doing. But first things first, I want you guys to see that there are 10 questions on this document. Two questions come after each of the snippets by the historian. And then your last two questions are down here on the bottom where it says final arguments. Now, these do not have to be huge, super long answers at the bottom. 9 and 10 is where you are showing both sides of the arguments. So to backtrack a little bit, you're going to be looking at documents that either describe Alexander the Great as a hero or Alexander the Great as a villain. And at the end of your classwork today, you're going to describe it from both sides. Quick note, as you can see that this has a little squiggle line underneath it, please make sure you are right-clicking that and changing it. It's okay to make mistakes, but if the mistakes are given to you by the document, please go ahead and change them as well. A lot of us have been making this mistake, so please just make sure your work is correct. All right. So I'm going to go through and model for you guys how to do the work that I'm asking you guys to do today. And the most important part is that you are still annotating the text. This should still be annotated. And the reason for that is these are written very long time ago. As you can see, 90 AD, their vocabulary and their words are going to be different than what we use today. So it might be really confusing as to what we're reading. And if you're confused about what you're reading, you're going to be confused answering the questions. And you can't sit there and go, well, I don't understand. I don't know what it means. You guys have a lot of tools in your toolbox to be able to help you work through the problems that you have. And that's what we really need to work on, challenge ourselves and do the work ourselves and not depend on me or somebody else to help you because you all do have the tools. With that being said, please feel free to go ahead and annotate your text the way that mine looks. Know that I'm not going to do every single one for you, but I do want to at least walk you through a couple of these. So what I'm going to do the first thing is that I already know that I have two questions that I need to ask based off this small little text right here. So I'm going to know what they are. So I'll read those first. So the first thing I want to know from this first document is, what did Alexander the Great do? Okay, so I want to know what Alexander the Great did. Now I know a little bit of information about what he did, but I want to know about it according to the document. So that's important to note. And the second question is, how does this document describe Alexander the Great? So the two things I want to get out of here is what he did and how did this document describe Alexander the Great? So I'm going to go ahead and start reading. When he came to Thebes, the city was destroyed. Alexander's hope was to terrify the rest of Greece into obedience. 30,000 were publicly sold for slaves, and it is computed that upwards of 6,000 were put to the sword. All right, first off the bat, there are a lot of words that I don't know. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight the words that I don't understand in red. And before I get any more information off this, what I need to do is actually go and look for the definition of these words because it might help me understand what it's talking about better for me to be able to answer these questions. And even though I know what a sword is, I don't understand the sentence of that 6,000 were put to the sword. That I don't understand, which is why the word is highlighted. So I'm going to go ahead and find out the definitions of these words quickly. And I just highlighted the word that I already highlighted. I'm going to right click it and I'm going to hit define obedience. And over here on the right, it's going to give me a bunch of different things that I can read. So compliance with an order, request, or law of submission to another's authority. Okay. Children were taught to show their parents obedience. Well, I know that as a child, you're taught to respect, understand, and listen to your parents. To compliance with an order, request, or law. Observance of the laws and rules, understand the rules, know the rules. Okay, so you want to basically, I think, listen. You want to be able to listen to whoever's in charge, right? Taught to show their parents obedience. Your children are taught to listen. Let's see if that makes sense. Alexander's hope was to terrify the rest of Greece into obedience. He wanted them to listen. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and exit out of definition. I'm going to highlight that word again and hit that comment box and said he wanted everyone to listen. Okay. Now that stays there. And all that means is that if I come back to this later and go, okay, I don't know what obedience means again, I can click on it and this pops up. He wanted everyone to listen. So let's do that again with computed. I know like computers, but I don't understand that. So again, we're going to highlight it. We're going to right click that word, hit define. It's popping up here. Calculated or reckoned. We can compute the exact increase. Work out, calculate, evaluate, determine. Okay, let's read that. And it is determined that upwards of 6,000 were put to the sword. Okay, I like it. Evaluate, I think I like determined. That makes sense to me. So I'm going to write determined. Oh, and I definitely spelled that wrong. Let me hit resolve, compute it. Again, if you didn't see it, great time to show you again. Highlight it, right click it, determine. All right, and the last one, that upwards of 6,000 were put to the sword. I don't know what that means. So let me just define that again. Okay, so it's telling me that it's a weapon with a long metal blade and okay, used for thrusting or striking. Right. Okay, so I know a sword can be used to hurt somebody. A sword could be used to kill somebody, especially during this time when they didn't have guns. So let me read that upwards of 6,000 were put to the sword. Well, if I already know that they're also being sold for slaves, I'm going to say that they were killed using swords. That would make a lot of sense. Using swords to kill people or to kill them. I think that makes a lot of sense. So if I read that again, when he came to Thebes, the city was destroyed. Alexander's hope was to terrify the rest of Greece into obedience. He wanted everyone to listen to him, and he was going to terrify them to listen. Thousands were publicly sold for slaves, and it was determined that upwards of 6,000 were put to their, instead of sword, maybe I can even say death. All right. So according to this document, now that I actually kind of understand what was going on, I can also highlight what I think is important is that he wanted people to be obedient towards him. He wanted people to listen to him. And he did that by selling people into slavery. And 6,000 were about killed, which is pretty crazy. That's a really high number. All right. So now I have two questions to answer. According to this document, what did Alexander the Great do? And how does this document describe Alexander? So, first off, I want to write this in a completed sentence. So I'm going to say, according to this document, Alexander the Great he did a lot of things. He sold slaves, he killed people in a way to terrify people to listen to him. So, according to the document, Alexander the Great wanted people to listen and obey him. So he sold people into slavery and killed around 6,000 people. All right, so just like that, it is one simple, quick sentence. And if you do not agree with what was said, please feel free to go ahead and speak to me privately, but I think I did an okay job. So we got right there, according to the document, about what he wants to do. So now your job is to use this document and the annotations that we went through and tell me how the document describes Alexander the Great. Okay, that is what you guys are going to do on your own.